All right, welcome back, everybody, to episode 5 on January 6th, a Tuesday, 2026. Thanks for joining me again. I am still sick. My voice still a little weird, but all right, well, let's get right into it. Okay, so first off, I wanted to read a few short things today. I just wanted to read a short quote that someone in the chat recommended to me after my talk the other day. And it's from a Theodore Rothke notebook. And the quote was, "Not only to perceive the single thing sharply, but to perceive the relationships between many things sharply perceived. Not only to perceive the single thing sharply, but to perceive the relationships between many things sharply perceived." And I wanted to read that because it's very relevant to what I'm trying to do here on the show, where we increasingly develop a sharpness about understanding the world around us and how it came to be and what we're doing in it and what we can be doing in it. And on that note, I wanted to say, well, in my stream yesterday when I was talking about the War of 1812, I was saying, as I was using it as an example, I was saying I'm not recently read on that topic, and I've never been well read on that topic. And a friend of mine did send me a bunch of stuff to read because he thinks that I have it backwards, which is completely possible. It seems like there was a lot more British aggression going on at that time than I realized. So yeah, so we will review. We'll review the literature. We'll check out, not today, but in the future. Once I will review the literature, and we can talk about it another time. But that's just to say, really, don't believe everything that you hear. That wasn't central to my point exactly at the time. It was just sort of a way of trying to connect it to a song that I heard, trying to connect a point to a song that I had heard, and I thought it was a fun example. But that is a lot of what we're doing online, is we're hearing things from people who don't know what they're talking about, and we're making that a part of our knowledge base and a part of ourselves. And we're rolling with it, and we're forgetting where we heard it. So this is definitely a primary source supremacist show. Go back to documents relevant to the time period, investigate what those people were actually saying, review the conversations in Congress at the time if you want to have a better sense of whether the War of 1812 was a mistake to initiate or not. And yeah, and that applies to just about everything, including takes about Venezuela and the kidnapping of the president. Just make sure that you check into the information surrounding what has come to pass, and don't even pass judgment on what you think has passed yet, because it's so distant from us. My example of that at the time is that these things can be complicated. There's even there's a possibility that this was agreed upon by Maduro to save him from his country and avoid just execution within his country. So time will tell with many of these things, and sometimes time does not tell. And that is something else that we have to accept, and we have to be careful not to get too attached to theories that we have about things that happened in the past that really we can't get very much, can't have that much clarity about, can't have that much assurance with regard to. For example, like, most of the people involved in the JFK assassination are dead, and we can get a pretty good sense of what went down there. But also, as time moves on, we need to adjust our sights to the sorts of issues that are facing us now, and that are the results of people who are still alive and still acting on the planet, such as the whole Epstein situation. And I'm not trying to say that is more important, although in a sense it is, because those people are still alive and they're still affecting our lives. And We certainly live downstream of the JFK assassination, and it's important to understand what went into that. But, you know, we have our own lives to live too. So I sometimes I see people getting in huge arguments about things like that, or stupider things. I mean, the JFK assassination has very obvious political consequences, especially if another nation is involved or certain organizations are involved. So yeah, that really matters. Whereas things like whether the moon landing was fake or not, when people get really up in arms about that sort of an argument, it's like, bro, like, why? So anyway, so that's what I wanted to say about the War of 1812 on this show. We are getting sharper. We are learning more about the world, and we're doing it together. And I've actually really liked a few people have gone out of their way to contact me through email or messaging. And there have been some YouTube comments too, but the specific thing that I was going to say is some people have highlighted topics that I brought up on the show that really resonated with them, and they've given their responses, or they've given examples from their own lives. And I really appreciate that. It is, I mean, it's nice because it's social, because I'm just talking to my camera right now, and it's nice to get actual feedback from people. But it also helps me refine my own ideas. It gives me it keeps the dialogue moving instead of just my internal dialogue that I'm having where I stream and I think about it the following day. It helps to receive some feedback, have it processed through other people's minds, see how other people are interpreting what I'm saying as well. Because I mean, nothing's been surprising or interpreted in a way that I didn't intend it, but that happens all the time, where language is an imperfect medium for thought. So I have thoughts, I understand things, but just because I'm using language to try to articulate them does not mean that anyone who hears it and tries to understand it is going to get what I was going for. So yeah. Just feel free to keep on doing that. And on the off chance anyone actually is interested in this sort of an exercise, like when I am watching content or reading a book, I like to try to, this is ultimately exhausting compared to how much media we actually consume. Like it's difficult to do this for everything, but I like taking notes on it as it progresses. And if that is something that you want to be doing, maybe you feel like you don't do it enough. If you do that while you're watching my show and you just keep like a text file or a notepad or whatever, and you share that with me, I will absolutely be reading it and thinking about it. So it helps the show along. It's an easy thing to do, and it's a good cognitive exercise. So since that's kind of a big theme on the show, I figure I should throw it out there as something that can be nice. Anyway, okay, yeah, so since I'm kind of sick still, I wanted to just throw myself a softball topic, and then I'll take tomorrow off and prepare for the next 2 streams. And that softball topic is in the title. It's about quitting your phone. And so I want to talk about a handful of related topics. I probably got a smartphone for the first time in 2015, and I got a cell phone for the first time in 8th grade, which is like 2010, I guess, around there. And I got a flip phone again a little over 2 years ago. And over the past 2 years, I've gotten asked a lot what that is like and how it's going and how I do certain things. And I figured I might as well just kind of answer those sorts of questions here in case anyone is interested in that. Or and it, I don't know, that, I mean, that makes it sound kind of boring, but I would like to talk about the differences in my experience using a flip phone versus a smartphone. And I don't know, there's going to be some experiential depth to that conversation. I think it's not really going to be like a list of like things to think about or things you can do to your smartphone, but there are things I'm going to talk about that you can do to your smartphone to make it less enticing to use, a little less addictive. So that's the plan, and then I'll go to bed. I did go to bed earlier yesterday than I have been, because yesterday's show was mostly about discipline and the idea of setting goals for yourself or knowing certain things are good for you but not being able to follow through on them or struggling to follow through on them. And the elephant in the room for that topic is phone addiction, and how scrolling and just like rotting your brain on YouTube or whatever it may be gets in the way of you doing the things that you actually think are important to do in this one life that you have here. So anyway, all right, so I guess I'll start off with sort of more like the list of things you can do. And then I may read at one point. I wrote a very short 20 paragraph zine about this topic. It's really the only writing I finished and have shared with anybody, and it's relevant, so I'll probably get into that as well. I mean, it might even make sense to start with that, because it kind of sets a little bit, it sets the universe up for what we're talking about here, like certain concepts like the desire that you have to check your phone, or the way that your consciousness sort of like bubbles up into the will, and then or that thoughts kind of bubble up into your conscious mind from beneath your conscious mind, and how sometimes the drive to use your phone comes from a place of trying to keep certain things out of your conscious mind. For example, say you're just sitting around and you have the urge to check the time on your phone. Like you just want to like tap your phone, see what time it is, like innocently. Like you're not even checking to see if there's notifications on the surface. You're just thinking like, I wonder what time it is. So even those thoughts, because our will and our desires are so complex and nothing is totally as it seems. I wouldn't say nothing is as it seems, but it is complex. We're in a society where we are molded from the day that we're born to have certain drives towards certain things, and much of that is animalistic. A lot of it is socially constructed, and then there's things that feel very personal to us as we live over the course of our lives, and then we feel that we're doing things for ourselves or for other reasons. Anyway, the point there is that when you are checking the time, there's a very real possibility that in the process, in the procedural development of your states of being, certain things are getting closer to the surface of your mind that some part of you really just doesn't want to think about. You know, when things come into your mind and you're like, or like maybe you say like shit or something, like it just pops into your head and you're like, you just like have a almost like visceral reaction where you're like, oh, get that out of there. Just like, I don't want to think about that. I feel like certain things, like, I don't know, embarrassing things you've said in the past fit into that category, unpleasant experiences, whatever it may be. And so that's one way that your body gets rid of it, because curse words do sort of live in a different realm compared to the entirety of our lexicon. Like they sort of have like a deeper connection. So when you like you like stub your toe or something, and you say fuck, it's like that is like an emotional, it's like a type of release. It's not really the same part of your linguistic capacity that is operating when you're communicating with someone, even when you're saying fuck in a conversation with someone. So they have this multiple role in the mind's lexicon. So I want to compare that to an action like checking the time, because the curse word, you're sort of leaving the territory of language for communication and entering something else. And then I feel like checking the time has some sort of proximity to that concept of emotional language, of I don't know what the word is for just like getting it out of yourself, but that kind of instinctive expression that happens. So I think this is just my experience with trying to sit with my own thoughts and really analyze where my own thoughts are coming from, like maybe sitting and meditating and keeping an eye on what comes to mind when there is no stimulus, when there's nothing, when I'm not seeing anything, I'm not hearing anything, and I'm specifically trying to kind of focus on my breaths and not be focused on the realm of thoughts. It's like, well, what shows up? Because it's all showing up from somewhere biologically. It's all within us. It's all a vital physiognomic process that brings these thoughts to us. It's kind of easy to forget that because we're in such a like cerebral, surface level linguistic society where we're engaging mostly with digital language and or language in the digital realm. So okay, so yeah. So my overall point here is that like I have grown to be suspicious of my urge to check what time it is, because I think that is just me trying to satisfy a certain discomfort. Maybe it's a discomfort with boredom or a discomfort with lack of stimulus, or it's I mean, these other things kind of fit in there where it's like a drive for excitement or a drive for novelty, a drive for possibility. It's sort of like hitting the slot machine or something where it's like, maybe there is a notification on my phone and I just didn't hear it. So I think we do have to think about all these parts of us who are thinking about those kinds of rewards, that type of excitement. Because on the surface, like, I don't think I'm really that excited about those things, but parts of me are, and I'm the sum of my parts. Like there are a lot of things going on within me that I don't really understand, and I probably will never understand because my understanding is a consequence of their existence and their interaction. So anyway, that's like a step into the way that I think about phone use now. It starts with that very skeptical. It starts with I feel skeptical about something that is considered to be very innocent, such as checking the time or even checking for notifications. I start to see something insidious even there in terms of who it is turning me into. And sorry, my neighbors are being a little loud right now, which hasn't happened on the stream before, so I'm a little bit getting distracted, or I'm thinking, should I put in my sound canceling headphones or what? I think I'll give it a shot. I'll give the headphones a shot. Hang on. Oh, they're right here. Well, I'll be right back. Okay. Yeah, I was a little hesitant to try this out with the sound canceling headphones because they're basically like earplugs. So now my own voice also just sounds like a little weird to me. Um, so regardless, we don't have a choice. We're trying something one way or the other. Either I have a loud room and I have to try to think in it, or I have earplugs and it feels like my voice is really inside my head. So I'll try rolling with this for a little while and see how it goes. Okay. So yeah, that concept of, yeah, that's like my stepping into the door, because I feel like these things are really affecting how we make our choices and who we become over time. And I think having such a simple example to keep in mind is kind of grounding. It's like an anchor you can come back to when you feel like you don't even really know how to think about the relationship between desire and your phone. I think it helps to have this one concept of like, maybe when I'm checking the time, I'm even kind of like trying to repress something, or I'm just not comfortable being bored. I'm just not comfortable being unexcited, because that is a sign of something else. I think that those sorts of discomforts, like the discomfort that comes from boredom, from being alone with oneself, from being unstimulated, having nothing exciting going on, I think those are moments, and the sort of discomfort that comes from that is fertile territory for trying to understand what you need to overcome in your own psyche to be more of who you, like a healthier version of yourself and a more capable, more potent version of yourself. I often say to myself, or I think of it as like discomfort is a compass. So the things that make you uncomfortable are the things that are worth analyzing. It's sort of like the compass is pointing you in the direction where it's like, okay, this is something I have to think about. And obviously that's not an enjoyable experience or an enjoyable way to think about it on the surface, because that's specifically the thing that makes you uncomfortable, or the dozen things that kind of makes you uncomfortable. Just to give an example, it could be answering the phone. Like say you get a phone call or something, whether it's from someone you know or someone you don't know. Like personally, I get a phone call and I'm like, ugh, like, do I want to answer this? And I just basically force myself to answer it, and I pretty much never regret it. It's a sign that I don't know what it is in me with the phone call specifically, but for example, it may be a desire to avoid other people. It may be a desire to sort of shut down or shut in, because there are parts of us that just are, I mean, maybe they're afraid, maybe they're malicious, who knows, but they kind of do want to shut us off from the world. They don't want to go down the righteous path, so to speak. They don't want to go down the path that leads to you doing what you really want to do. It more wants to cripple you, could be death drive type thoughts. And that's the stuff that I feel like I'm trying to identify in my own life and weaken. I feel like another way that I think about it is like, I want to like starve those parts of myself, of like, I don't want to feed them. I want them to like kind of with, I mean, there's a lot of nuance to this, because I think on the other hand, you also have to be caring with these parts of yourself, because they pretty much always stem from some past experience in which you were hurt, and or in which you were afraid, or in which you were like needs were not met in one sense or another. So it's not like I'm like just simply always breaking out the ruler on these like sort of parts of my psyche that are not helping me accomplish the goals that I believe I should be focusing my attention on. So with that duality in mind, with that dual approach in mind, one of care and concern as well as restriction, it's like we don't want to feed these things. It's bad for us and it's bad for them. That's not going to heal the hurt that created that desire in you. it's going to give it a coping mechanism, and it's going to get addicted to that coping mechanism, and it's going to make you reach for that coping mechanism all the time. It's going to make you avoid your problems. I mean, that's kind of the classic, like, I hadn't thought about this, but that whole concept of avoiding your problems, that like is the inverse of discomfort being your compass. It's like, go find your problems. Like, if you have problems, I feel like probably the first, if you really want to solve them, you should try to identify them. You should try to understand them. You need to get a lay of the land and the players and the dynamics and everything. You should take a strategic approach to trying to solve your problems. We all have problems. Let's try to heal from them. So yeah, so that's kind of how I start to think about this problem of the smartphone. And I think that's useful because we also need to understand that the smartphone is not inherently bad. A lot of things about it are designed to specifically atrophy the best parts of our existence, like reduce our attention and turn us into capital accumulation cattle for the accumulators. And, you know, there's a lot of design choices that are made in the programs that run on these tools and in the tools themselves that do not have human wellness in mind, human liberty in mind, or anything like that. So, and yet we need to admit that they are neutral tools and they have an immense capacity for good. They're like supercomputers, basically. I mean, like they are general use, like incredibly capable cameras, recording machines, and general use computers. So there's so much you can do on there that is actually useful to yourself and useful to the world. There's so much you can do. I have a friend who archives lots of documents using them, cleans up documents that have never been scanned, and then archives them, and does this all with their phone. So I know tons of people who also have relatively healthy relationships with their phone use and have it under control and are able to, they got the saddle on it and they're in control. They're able to do it. I don't feel like I'm really at that level. I think personally, due to my own predispositions, I mostly have to try to avoid it because it just is so, I just don't think those sorts of tools play to my strengths. And I think even when I am using them effectively, it kind of, it's having a greater negative consequence for me than if I were not using the smartphone. So we all have to assess our own personal capacity for using these tools and using them in ways that we respect our use of, and knowing when we're using them poorly. Sorry, it definitely is a little weird with these earplugs in. So with that in mind, I think most of us do want to reduce the amount of time that we spend on our phone and also change what we are doing on our phone when we are using it. So I definitely have some recommendations toward that end. And this is kind of probably the list section of the stream. And I'll just kind of talk about things that were helpful for me a little bit. And number one is to put your phone and your laptop and whatever, I do it for everything, in grayscale. Excuse me. In grayscale. And that makes it a much more, there's a lot of benefits to this, actually. So it makes your phone less eye-catching, and the way that user interface designers and graphic designers think about creating an app icon or creating app interfaces to use is like they want you to use it. They want it to look enticing. They want it to look satisfying. They want it to look like nice when you touch the like button and it turns red or whatever. They want you to click on the app icon because it has really bright colors and it evokes a sense of like, oh yeah, I like when I'm using this app. It's like this in there. It's like, I don't know, like there's a lot of intention that goes into that kind of design. And when your phone is in grayscale, it reduces elements of that. It makes it a little bit less exciting. And the flip side of that is that it gave me a much greater appreciation for the image in general. Like for photographs, for art, for everything, I feel like I have a stronger ability to see what really goes into a photograph after a long time having my devices in black and white. I mean, it didn't take long for me to notice that, like maybe a month or two. Like you kind of notice it early on, but eventually it really shifts how you think about the photograph or a piece of art, the image. And that, I really appreciate that actually, because it's weird because it's silly because we're in such a like image dominated society where it's like the image has so much significance and the image is what we're dealing with more than reality a lot of the time. And yet, like, even our relationship to the image is very shallow. At least that's how I felt in my own life. Like now I really, really appreciate black and white photography, and I appreciate color photography all that much more. And so I recommend it just for that reason alone. And the other thing I noticed, and this I only really noticed after at least a month of doing grayscale on my devices, is when you see other people's phones, they look like so. When you see other people's phones and they're watching videos in color, or you see their like app screen, it looks so grotesque and weird. It looks like pornographic and disgusting. It's sort of like the way that the colors pop after that is so, it just seems so obviously designed to be sort of like a toy for like stealing your attention. And there's something really perverse about that, especially after the reflection where you're like, wow, I used to have such a shallow sense of the 2D image, and now it's gotten so much stronger. And then you see people using much more intense images, bright colored images, and mostly like still maintaining that very shallow relationship to the image. So everything is just worth, you can just scroll and throw it away. So that's funny. I mean, that still happens to me when I see other people's phones. It feels so wrong. Just feels kind of like creepy and perverse. Just being honest, that's like what it evokes for me. Okay, so yeah, grayscale, awesome. The other thing you can do on that note, I don't know how this works on iPhones. I believe iPhone does have options for this, but I'm going to talk about launchers. So most people probably know your phone has an operating system, and the operating system is how the phone functions, essentially. It's the basic running program upon which all of the other interactions and telecommunications and programs live. So the launcher is what shows you your home screen. So the launcher is a sub program of the operating system that shows you the oh man, I've such a low capacity for looking at the chat during this. It wipes my train of thought. So anyway, so the launcher, it creates your home screen, and it shows you your apps. So in theory, if you had a different launcher, you could have a different home screen that presents things to you differently. And lots of people design different launchers. I'm pretty sure for the iPhone you can do it. I have an Android smartphone, so you can absolutely do it for free on Android. And There are a lot of minimal launchers. There's a lot of text-based launchers. I use one that is just in black and, well, no, I made it in black and white, but it's text-based, and it is, you can just have like 4 names of apps on your screen. Like you could have your email, Instagram, whatever it is. I don't know. I mean, for things like Instagram, I like to bury it. I don't like to have it right there to be clicked easily. And so for mine, I wish I had my phone handy and I could just show you. But I can show you in a future episode. And the way that you search for the apps that are not on your direct immediate home screen is you like swipe and you just start typing, and it narrows down the list of apps that you have to ones that only contain those letters. So you can just type like INS and Instagram will open, because that's the only app you have installed that has an I, an N, and an S in a row in it. So that is very helpful as well. And yeah, so that is, those are 2 things. That's probably all I have to say about those 2. Another thing you can do is most phones, I believe, have built-in infrastructure for this in the settings, where you can set certain apps to be like, I don't know, maybe it's called like focus settings or something, where it's like there are certain apps that if I have them open for 5 minutes, like give me a notification that says it's been open 5 minutes. If it's been open 10 minutes, it will tell me that. It will tell me that. And so I have that as well. There's another thing. I don't remember anymore. Oh yeah, I do. So I also use an app called I Choose To. There was a phase where I was really trying to dumb down my smartphone, and now I'll use it for certain things. Like I can use it for social media at home, but it's not connected to a plan. I can't use it out in the world unless I have Wi-Fi. And yeah, so the I Choose To app was designed to basically give you a prompt when you open certain applications. So for me, that would be like Instagram or YouTube, that I'm probably opening for the wrong reason, or without thinking about it. So it can give you a prompt. You can put whatever quote you want in there, and like something like, why are you opening this? Or like list specifically why you're opening this app, to yourself. Like, do you have a concrete reason for wanting to use this? And yeah, and then it lets you in. You can even put timers on it. So it's like after 15 minutes, just like cut me off. That one's cool. And I think that apps aside, I think it is helpful when you are using internet devices to set your intentions before you let yourself open them. And that just, it can really help to not get sidetracked when you have like a really clear list on a notepad or whatever, where you're just like, I'm turning on my laptop so that I can edit this YouTube video to cut off the intro portion, and that's it. And then if you want to update that once you are on the computer, I mean, let's be real, you're just going to do other stuff on the computer, but it helps to practice, it helps to train that part of your brain to have intentions when you're using devices. And as time goes on and you're training that part of your brain to use devices with intention, you just get stronger, you get more capable of knowing what you really want out of device use. And while we're talking about kind of like pen and paper work, I think it helps to also identify like the things you really don't like doing on your phone, or when you're on the internet, whether it's the phone or the laptop or whatever. Like if you like binge YouTube videos for hours and you're like, man, like I barely remember any of that, like I'm not taking notes on it, and like, yeah, it helps to have a sense of like like the big 5 or whatever of things that you do online where you're like, that's not good for me. And also, like, it doesn't have to be just like a total cutoff when you're doing that thing. You could be like, well, I can watch YouTube if I'm taking notes on it or something. And then if you actually take notes, it does sort of exercise another part of your capacity of your cognitive critical capacity, and you may start thinking more judgmentally about what you're consuming, because there's lots of ways to consume things, and I think it's helpful to, when you're taking notes, you're more likely to judge something a little more harshly. I think something that you would otherwise maybe just be agreeing with. I think you might be like, oh, now that I'm writing this down, like, do I agree? Maybe I'll add my nuance to that since I'm writing it down anyway. So those are two like pen and paper ideas. And now I'll just talk a little bit about the idea of getting a flip phone specifically. And real quick, someone in the chat says there's an iPhone app called Yarn that does focus mode, and if you want to open a blocked app, you have to answer a short journal prompt. That sounds good. So yeah, I'll talk a little bit about. I don't know. Seemed like my mic was really hot for a second. So on the topic of actually getting a flip phone and downgrading, I have a few things to say. First, I'll just describe what I did. I was thinking about it for a while. I was like researching a bunch of phones, and then eventually I just, there's a lot of options out there, and I just kind of snapped, and I just went to Walmart and got the cheapest phone, and and it was great. And I got just a pay per month plan. I got like a $20 phone with like a $10 or $15 a month plan, and it had a new phone number. And in theory, I could put my old phone number on there, but I decided not to. And what I did with my old phone number was I transferred it to Google Voice so that I could have it archived. Because part of the idea of getting rid of my smartphone and getting a flip phone was I really missed the days where I could turn my phone off and just leave it off for a week. So I did that like 2020-ish, 2019, 2020, like that was something I used to like to do, or like a dopamine fast, as some people call it. And so the circumstances of my life changed such that I basically always had to have a phone on me in case someone had to reach me. So I stopped turning my smartphone off, and it sucked. So I just really wanted to have like a phone for emergencies, a phone that like some people could always reach me at, and I could turn off the other phone, and like if someone's trying to reach me, eventually I will see it. So yeah, so that was my like use case basically, which is probably different for other people. I mean, some people have maybe different email needs for their job or whatever. Anyway, so yeah, I transferred my old phone number to a Google Voice number, and that was helpful because it, I don't know, I've had the same phone number for a long time. So anyone who has that phone number, if they reach out to me, like I'll see it eventually. So people could reach out to me from 10 years ago, and I'll still see it. It's not gone forever, and that's something that I think a lot of people are concerned about. I think honestly, we should maybe be a little less worried about getting a new phone number, especially if you can keep the old one, because in a way we are sort of developing two ways of operating in the world. And it seems like more people are interested in having like just a flip phone where people can reach them if they need them. And then you have your whole internet life. And if you have your whole internet life and that's where your old phone number lives, I find that that's really not too bad. It's like, cause how many people are you like texting or calling all the time who realistically can't just switch to the flip phone for contacting you? I don't know. I just don't think it's crazy to sort of separate those things and be like, all right, my old phone number, like everything's changed. Everything's a lot more on the internet in my life now. Like that old phone number can go to the internet. I can turn that phone off, and I can have this new phone where people who I really care about are able to reach me. That certainly has worked really well for me. And yeah. So yeah, and I kind of glossed over this, but yeah, just don't overthink the flip phone. Like it's like, just get one. It just doesn't, it really doesn't matter. or like thinking about trying to get signal on it or whatever you may want. It's like, just like the point's just to use your phone less anyway. It's like, just get one, see how it goes, see if you really need something else, and then switch. My keyboard's kind of fucked up after 2 years. It's really annoying to text with it, but it works fine for calls, and like it's manageable for text. It's like, yeah, I'm glad I didn't continue wondering about it for too long or spend much more money on it, because it was $20. Who cares? Oh yeah, and this might be the last thing here. The other question I get a lot is, how do I get around? And so with the smartphones of today, they are all connected to the GPS system. I don't know much about how the GPS system works, but you do not need a phone plan to use the GPS system. Your phone is just already connected to it. So if you get rid of your phone plan, you get rid of your SIM card, but you keep your smartphone, you can still use the GPS if you're on Wi-Fi. And obviously that is not helpful in and of itself, but many apps will let you download maps for your, many map apps will let you download maps, and they will, and they'll just live on your phone. So you can use your GPS when you're out and about, when you're driving somewhere, even very long distances. You could, if you download maps like across the country, I'm pretty sure it can construct that route across the country. I've done some really long drives with it. I haven't driven like across the country horizontally doing it, but yeah, I mean, it's super useful. You can just download a lot of some significant distances, and it works in places like New York City as well. Like you will not get the updates related to like route changes or subway cancellations or whatever, but it does give you the subway regular schedules, or like if not the schedules, it certainly shows you the routes. It can give you a variety of connections that will get you where you're going. And also in New York, there are lots of little Wi-Fi areas where you can get those cancellation information if you really are totally stuck somewhere. Yeah, so that's most of what I had to say about the phone. And then there's a handful. There's a few more things I'll say in general, but that's kind of my quitting the phone spiel. And I really recommend it. I really recommend, even if you don't switch to a flip phone. And there's so much I'm not even touching on here, such as surveillance and other things. But even if you don't get a flip phone, I think it's very important to spend time without the internet, spend time without the phone specifically as a tool, because your psyche develops a relationship with this cute little object, and you need to break them up. You're responsible for kind of breaking up what's going on there, because it's gross and it's bad, and it's going to ruin your life if you're not careful. Again, I'm saying, like, the phone can be used in totally fine ways, but I think it's making tons of people sick. I think it's making people socially sick. It's creating significant social problems. It's creating immense political problems, and I just don't like where it's going. I don't like being around a bunch of phone sick people, and I don't like being a phone sick person myself. So all right. Yeah. Oh yeah. So if you spend time without the phone, it really changes the frame that you're in. So this is something I talked about yesterday, but you right now, as you exist and as you are thinking and as you're able to think, the you that is like the base foundation of your capacity for thought, like that is how you are conceiving the world. Like the state of your body and mind right now, and all of the things that you've been doing recently that have made you the way you are, you're still rolling off of that. That is creating who you're becoming in this very moment and continue to become. And so I say it's important to spend time off of the phone because, like, it allows you to experience a different type of becoming. If you go on your phone every day, it is constantly like injecting into your system this way of understanding yourself and the world. It's just constantly molding the tool with which you think. So that's serious business. It's it really sorry, there's a song I kind of want to quote here where it's just like it's disassembling your pliers. It's taking apart your ability to even then understand anything, to take anything apart and understand it. Potentially, if you're using it in an unhealthy way, that's how the ball rolls. That's how the inertia grows. It creates increasingly uncritical and more impotent and sort of frankly dumb people. And I've suffered from it, and I continue to suffer from these things. Like, it's not, we don't all have to be ashamed entirely, but I think we should feel a little ashamed of disrespecting our own existence to the extent that I think a lot of us have done in our lives. And I think that shame can be useful for motivating us to actually make changes in our lives that will have lasting effects in our lives and in other people's lives. But yeah, so when you can hypothetically, you can be like, well, I know what it's like to not use my phone for a week. You can be like, well, I can imagine what that's like. But you don't until you do it, because it changes who you are. You're still riding off of using a phone right now. But when you actually cut it off, it changes who you are, and it changes how you are, literally how you are thinking. It literally changes how you are able to think. It is literal. So really can't say that enough to myself as well. And yeah. And I guess I can try to describe some of what that feels like. I haven't gone a week without my phone in too long. I would like to do that myself. And now I'm locked into this, but I can try to not be on my phone when I'm not doing this. And so I guess one thing that I notice is that as that week progresses and you go to bed without a phone and you wake up without a phone and you go to bed without a phone and you wake up without a phone, as those like difficult periods in particular pass, I think it is very relaxing. Specifically, one thing that gets relaxed is your desire to go on the phone. As this week progresses, I tend to find like I don't even really understand what I do on the phone and like what I don't really understand what I could even want to be doing on it. So that's what I mean, where like you change, the way that you think changes. And yeah, so that's just one little example of what you could experience if you don't go on the internet for a week. Obviously, it depends on what else you do during that week. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, and one other little thing is just this, because that does need to be connected to the concept of the fast. Of fasting from certain things. And fasting historically has been from food, which is something that is essential to life. And we need to be consuming it, but we can also consume it in excess, or we can consume it without gratitude, or we can, you can develop an unhealthy relationship to something that we need metabolically to exist. And I think that experience of fasting teaches you a lot about why you do certain things. And I think fasting from food can be very valuable in a spiritual way. I think it can be very helpful to understand your own drives and your own ability to discipline yourself. And I think we need to extend that, because we're no longer just in this material world. We're in this strange psychological mediascape where we have our drives being affected by all sorts of electromagnetic input from all around the world. So I think we need to fast from that type of, I can't make an analogy to food really with it, but we need to fast from that type of activity in our lives, from that sort of input in our lives, to better understand ourselves, to develop spiritually. I think it's literally important to develop spiritually in this way, because food is, I mean, it's actually pretty easy to fast from food if you're using your phone, because it's such a gratifying device. It has become so integrated with our system of motivation and our dopamine circuitry, such that it is like, it's easier it's easier to go a long time without eating if you're like watching YouTube, because it's getting you by. And that, so if you think fasting from food, if you think fasting from food can have any spiritual value, then you just must concede that fasting from internet technology can have that same value, because it's just even more intensely affecting us. And it's a prerequisite for fasting from food. In order to fast from food, you really have to fast from the other things that are satisfying you in a deeper way, and do without them and see who you are without them. So yeah, that's kind of the end of the monologue. I guess I'll read this little thing that I wrote, because it's relevant, and I can give a little bit of commentary on it as I do so. Yeah. And then we can call it a day. Oh, hell yeah, let's go. Okay, this is W's in the chat for this guy. I'm transcribing Gregorian plain chant to modern notation while listening to this stream. Let's go. Oh wait, that's well, you know, I could believe that this particular person is doing that, but I see now there's a chain of jokes in the chat. So, although, you know, I could see the other guy scrolling TikToks and playing Fortnite while watching this stream as well. So, maybe it's real, maybe it's fake. But okay, here's my zine. Okay, my smartphone reduces the depth of my experiences. It dulls my senses and changes the way that I think. I get addicted to distracting myself. Even just checking the time can eliminate a train of thought. I get used to behaviors that take me away from the things that, in theory, matter most. In action, day after day, I neglect those things. People scroll all the time. They scroll through their shifts at work, in retail, medicine, policing, etc. Highway drivers scroll, babies in strollers scroll, Buddhist monks scroll. So what happens when you look at the screen? For who knows how many millennia, when a waking human being saw something with its eyes, what it saw was real. We are meant to react to what we see. Our lives depend on it. After all, what but the stars' light curved so smooth the corneas of the eyes of man? The moving image subverts our primal faith, that faith in our senses. When you sit down and watch TV for a while, you are only engaging two of your senses, and you are using them in a very narrow range of their capabilities. The more you ignore the rest of the world around you and within you, the deeper your viewing experience. TV watching is a limited form of sensory deprivation. Sensory deprivation puts humans in a trance-like state. In the 20th century, it was firmly established that in these states, we are more susceptible to persuasion and influence than usual. So, whose voices do we hear when our guard is down? On TV, the content comes from an opaque source. My hands and financiers play a role in producing the content, series, news, commercials, and maintaining the stations. Over the years, techniques have been refined to hold a viewer's attention. Techniques like editing the rate of cuts per second to best engage the eye. Techniques that had so many people saying, I only watched the Super Bowl for the commercials. I'm sure the people pouring money into this attention research have our best interests in mind. Regular TV use changes how people choose to spend their time. Coming home from work, many people develop a habit where they relax by watching TV. This habit may develop out of a mix of the viewer's escapist desires and the TV's manipulation tactics. It can easily become an addictive coping mechanism. Regular TV use changes people's character. Humans have a deep-seated instinct of mimicry. Children learn by watching, and we never grow out of this habit. When we watch TV daily, we are watching fake human behaviors in unreal scenarios, even if it's real footage. We will always identify with certain behaviors and actions, and in a semi-sense-deprived state, these identifications may imprint quite deeply, especially in children. We become what we see. The smartphone also injects images into our brain through a screen. Paired with headphones, a narrow sensory window like that of TV watching imposes itself. The phone is addictive and people bring it everywhere, often right in their hand. We see lots of human behavior on that screen, so mimicry comes into play as well. Our nervous bodies actually interact directly, electromagnetically, with the internet via light to our eyes and touch from our fingers. Let's not forget the brain in between. All of us users are connected via this expansive grid of material and radiation when we see or touch its devices. It's a global nervous system, and we can do anything with it, like synchronize our emotions to advertising initiatives together. Heart emoji. It gets crowded fast to be connected to the whole world. Yesterday, I opened my phone and accidentally saw Charlie Kirk get shot in the throat. My body reacts to that in two ways. I'm a human animal, so I can't shake believing that it is real. Elements of myself react as if it has occurred in front of me, welling with emotions. Yet I'm a 21st century man, and so not a millisecond passes before I am unconsciously suppressing these emotions. You can't release this tension, and you likely ignore it without naming it. In relative proportion, this struggle and its resultant friction arise with all more minor forms of digital imagery. It need not be death. As the saying goes, I can't unsee that. But can I? Let's attempt a demonstration. Bring Joe Biden to mind. I assume you have a few angles of the man. These images you see are physically a part of you, literally. They are imprinted in arrangements of your neurons. You brought the images to your mind's eye from your physicality. Where else? And we don't get to choose what sticks. Try to forget Joe for a minute. It's not just for the famous. Anyone can create anything, and anyone can see it. Say you accidentally go viral, you may wind up in a stranger's dreams, brought to life by their brain cells' impressions of your brief moment of fame. This happens constantly in our world. Okay, that section is that's a little weird now that I'm live streaming it to people. Our consciousness is older than language. There are lively parts of us that think in storytelling, images, myths, and symbols. Since the day we came to life, we've been amassing this nonverbal vocabulary out of our experiences, from our feelings, actions, senses, and intellect. We use this vocabulary constantly, below the surface of our linguistic ego. For example, when I imagine sadness, all sorts of images come to play, and if I'm in tune with myself, I can see them with some clarity. Overstimulation makes being in tune with oneself quite hard, as we field our unceasing audiovisual novelties. Even if we feel them, our culture discountenances those experiences which cannot be put into words nor turned into information. Despite this situation, we ought to explore and seek to understand ourselves. We ought to grant recognition to those deepest elements of our being. Our mind is much more than our stream of consciousness. There is no pure will. Our ego is brought about by unfathomable complexity at play in the cells of our body. There is an endless metabolic dance of sub-processes that cross between each other. This is life. Highly normalized behaviors endanger that which should be most cherished in us. Our grasp slips on our memories, sensitivities, logical capacities, and more. Screen time tends to atrophy your creative capacity to understand your experiences and interpret meaning, essentially the capacity to truly imagine. When we consume content, that content furnishes our symbolic vocabulary. What's left to imagine when you've got all the images? I may hear a bark out the window and imagine a dog from a video. Why bother imagining one when content is ready to hand in our psyche? We think with what we've seen. When I lay down to sleep after using a device, I am peppered by impressions of that which I saw on the device. I drift amid alien information, structures I did not build. Integration stumbles. I'm left frustrated by my impressionistic dissociation. I'm left wishing I could dissolve the images that separate me from myself. When I lay down to sleep after a screenless day, I'm flooded by impressions of experiences I was blessed to have. I drift in a landscape of life. I process, I feel, and I integrate. So that's the zine. And if you want to print this, it's just one piece of paper. So it's easy to print and distribute. And you can hit me up for that, email or Instagram or whatever. So yeah, I mean, that's the show. Well, I guess a couple more things I'll say before I forget. Okay, so I've touched on this, but I just really want to emphasize how significant the political implications of being so affected by our phones is. And that will be a subject of a longer stream, but really, like, people cannot function in a government or in a society administered by a government such as ours in a way that is going to keep them well in the future. If you are sorry, I kind of lost the beginning of that sentence, but it's just to say, like, we're not going to be well off if we stay phone sick. Like, really, we should be trying to be as cognitively healthy as possible, because we're in a very dangerous global situation. We're in a very dangerous local situation, I think. And I guess it's reading hour. I have this pinned on my wall. It's a quote from Ivan Illich's Tools for Conviviality. Just a quick thing. Elite professional groups have come to exert a radical monopoly on such basic human activities as health, agriculture, home building, and learning, leading to a war on subsistence that robs peasant societies of their vital skills and know-how. The result of much economic development is very often not human flourishing, but modernized poverty, dependency, and an out-of-control system in which the humans become worn-down mechanical parts. And if that doesn't describe our society, you know, I don't know. I think it does a pretty good job. And the other little thing I was going to mention is just in the zine I read, in the first paragraph, I mention that I get used to behaviors that take me away from the things that, in theory, matter most. In action, day after day, I neglect those things. And I think that's a very important thing to try to... We should be trying to merge those. Our conception of what theoretically is most important for us to do with our lives and the actions we take in the everyday. I think we should be trying to conform those. I personally, in my own life, would like to conform those. And that requires trying to sort out what I really believe to be the most important. And that's not an isolated task. It's not something I do alone. It's something I do not just with other living people, but with books written by long past people. And so on that note, like, I think that is something we have to exercise and practice in order to actually merge those things. You cannot just wake up one day and suddenly you're going to be behaving perfectly in the way that you have always dreamed that you would be. It's an effort that we have to develop over time. And I think the Taoist conception of this in the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu is useful. Their conception of virtue, which is sometimes not translated, it's T-E or D-E. So I just want to read a little. I don't have the translation that I want to read from handy, but I do have two other translations, and I think it will be clear enough what I am trying to get at here. But there's only one chapter in the Tao Te Ching. It's around like 81 chapters or something. And there's only one chapter that really refers to the necessity of your past actions affecting the current actions. It's a lot of, you can read much of this book thinking just about moving forward with your life and about what you're going to do. And I think chapter 59 sticks out and is interesting because it talks about the stores of virtue gathered in the past And in a translation I don't have, they call it, I don't know, they say something along the lines of like right action depends upon stores of virtue gathered in the past. And that could change everything metaphysically if you're, depending on how you're constructing a conception of what Taoism is talking about. Because that means it really matters what we do in the past. And it's not just about quitting the phone one day. It's about quitting the phone now so you can grow and be much better 10 years from now. It's about the building, essentially. It's about creating the store of virtue through virtuous action on the planet. And virtue, I've mentioned this before, but it's kind of a technical term. It's one of the two most technical terms in Taoism. It's a little specific, but it's rendered as virtue for a reason. So I don't feel like I'm of sound mind to describe that well to people right now. So I'll read chapter 59 in two translations that I do have on hand. I guess I do probably have like 4 other ones in here, but I've never read those. So I've at least read these two, and I know what I'm getting into. So, I mean, it's like people say it's the second most translated into English book in history. So there's a whole lot of translations. So again, I'm reading this in context of the zine, where it's like, I want to eventually get to the point where the things that I think are most important in theory are also the things that I think are most important as demonstrated through my actions in my everyday life. So 59. To govern men and to serve heaven, nothing is better than to have a reserve. And another, not to cut myself off immediately, but something interesting about the Tao Te Ching is how many ways you can read it, because it is a political text, it's a metaphysical text, it's a psychological text. And so to govern men and to serve heaven, that's the concept, is to be a righteous leader. But you can also think about what I was talking about earlier with all the varied and warring and the varied and, I don't know, lively parts of our psyche that we don't have control over, that are they're running their own little shows, and we wind up, we live with them. We are one in a sense, but we also are multiple. And so like this can also be read in terms of like, well, I'm governing men, I'm governing this complex psychological being that I am, to serve heaven. So lots of ways to read this book. Back into it. To govern men and to serve heaven, nothing is better than to have a reserve. The master indeed has a reserve. It is called brilliant foresight. Brilliant foresight is called the increasing abundance of virtue. And that is what I'm talking about, where it's not super obvious in this translation how time plays into it, but I'll point it out. The concept of increasing abundance necessitates time. So you can't increase things instantly. The concept logically requires that it's increasing from somewhere over time. And he's talking about a person. So this is something you do over the course of your life. So the reserve is an increasing abundance of virtue. Ultimately. Yeah. And I'll read the rest. That's really the main part of the verse that I think is relevant here. Because I think we do have to think about, like, if I don't do it today, I'm starting off worse tomorrow. Like I have to be building this reserve in order to be really capable of what I'm capable of. And that's what the rest of the verse is about. If you have an increasing abundance of virtue, then your inner life is unconquerable. If your inner life is unconquerable, then its limits cannot be known. If you cannot gauge the limits of your inner life, then you surely shall possess the kingdom. If you possess the mother of the kingdom, you shall endure forever. This is to be deep-rooted and to have a firm foundation. The possessor of Tao shall have enduring life and infinite vision. And I'll read this other more recent translation. This one's from the early 1900s, was translated into English. This is pretty recent. I think this came out a couple of years ago. This one's that was Isabella Mears, I think. Isabel or Isabella Mears. And this is Brooke Ziporian, I think. Yeah, Brooke Ziporian. So, and he's taken Isabella does a type of literal translation from the characters to the English, and Brooke kind of goes off. He is just like, I don't know. He is trying to do a more philosophical work, I think, where he's trying to bring the philosophical implications into the text instead of leaving the text to have those philosophical implications learned by comparing it to the other Taoist texts and doing the history. Anyways, so to govern men and serve heaven, best just to cherish whatever you already have. Cherishing what you have means devotion to it without delay. And so we already see a significant difference. This was always a verse that I liked reading in my standard translation, the first one I really read. And so I came to this verse expecting something different. And it took me some time to understand what he meant by this. So to govern men and serve heaven, best just to cherish whatever you already have. Cherishing what you have means devotion to it without delay. And also a quick note, as far as differences go, there also are different source texts, and he describes in the beginning specifically which ones he uses. I don't know anything about any of that, but there's also a possibility that the lines they're translating are actually different. But I think that this has come to be one of my favorite English renditions of Taoist verses, because I have found it really useful in my own life. Like this concept of cherishing whatever you already have, and this definition of cherishing as cherishing what you have means devotion to it without delay. It really made me think about paying attention to the things that I have immediate control over, because you may want to read, like, I don't know, you may want to just go and read all these different books and expand your knowledge, but I think it plays into this strategic concept of assessing what you already have and making sure you're attending to those most important things that are already in your life. Keeping up with the people who are already very close to you instead of searching off to go find new friends. Whatever it may be. That is something that so it's a different concept. I don't know if I can really reconcile those two things, but the two translations are important to me for those two different reasons. And so I'll read the rest of this one as well. Devoted to it without delay, the store of virtuosities soon doubles. Doubling the virtuosities and doubling again, there is nothing that cannot be overcome. Able to overcome everything, you are free of any known limits. It is those who are free of any known limits who are fit to possess an entire nation. But it is possession of the mother of the nation that gives a strong root and a firm foundation, the course of long life and enduring vision. So that's interesting, because he leads with like attending to that which is closest to you, whatever you already have. Cherish whatever you already have, and that means devotion to it without delay. Keep attending to it immediately. And yet he's saying by doing that, and increasing your virtue in this way that is so grounded and close to you, he like goes on to say you like possess the entire world. It's you nothing can be, you're free of any known limits. So it's an interesting contrast there, this concept of attending to what you already have and also then just going completely beyond everything. And with that, I think I'm going to wrap it. So yeah, great. Thank you for coming. I'll give this like, I'll give it like 40 seconds just in case anyone has any questions so that I can see any comments. But other than that, like, I'll call it. And I'm not going to stream on Wednesday, but I will stream on Thursday, Friday, 9 p.m. And I'll try to get something good together on Wednesday, and I'll try to just sleep until I feel normal. Oh, actually, I'll do one quick little book cam thing for you. Because I went book scouting today, and I found something kind of cool. It's a Japanese book. It's not particularly old. It has an ISBN barcode on it, so it's They introduced those in the 70s, so you know you don't have an old book if it has an ISBN code on it. But it's just these two really long prints that I haven't actually even looked at entirely yet. So yeah, I'll pull it out this way, and then I'll do a quick book cam for everybody. Actually, wait, no, this is Chinese, not Japanese. Yeah. So, but all the text is in Chinese too, so I don't know what it says. Oh, and it's more than 2 prints. It looks like it's at least 3 prints. So let's check this out. Nice. Yep. That's a horse. Not that guy though. Oh, this is cool. Yeah, and the book is destroyed. The spine is totally broken, but the prints are a-okay. So let's check one more here. Did I show this one? Oh my god, they're huge. Hang on. Alright, that's just text. Lots of animals. We'll talk about we'll talk about animals in the future on this show. I do love animals, and you know, as I try to hammer home how important these things are and how much say we really do have over our whole lives, like animals they're just going extinct all around the world. We're destroying the planet. So let's not destroy the planet, and let's learn from animals. And I'll zoom in on these real quick. And I like graphics like these too, because the animals have like a lot of personality. And I think we should be learning from the personalities of the animals. Can teach us a lot about our own personalities and how we learn about other people. They all have temperaments, you know? So that's one. I'll show you all of them. And one more here. Oh, that's it. All right. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate all of you for watching this. And no show tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, 9 p.m. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. Hit me up if you have any comments or thoughts. And yeah, see you on Thursday. Thanks.